Elon Musk just walked into a courtroom, and he's about to turn it upside down. You won't believe how this genius billionaire flips the script on his accusers. Hey, quick question. Have you ever seen a courtroom twist you didn't see coming? Drop your thoughts below. The courtroom buzzed with tension, the air thick with anticipation. Every seat in the gallery was jammed, reporters scribbling furiously, cameras flashing like lightning, and spectators leaning forward, whispering bets on how this would end. Elon Musk, the tech titan who'd built empires and sparked revolutions, sat at the defendant's table, hands clasped, face a total mystery. Across from him, the judge smirked, flipping through papers with a smug flick, his chuckle cutting through the silence. Well, he drawled, his tone soaked in sarcasm, Elon Musk, the brilliant billionaire who thinks he's above the law. The crowd stirred, a ripple of snickers spreading. The prosecution's lawyer grinned wide, practically glowing with confidence. He figured today was just a golden chance to drag Musk through the mud in front of the world. The judge leaned back, his amusement growing. I hope you're ready, Mr. Musk, he teased. This isn't one of your Twitter brawls. This is a courtroom. A wave of laughter rolled through the room, heads turning toward Musk. But he didn't flinch. His eyes, sharp and steady, locked onto the judge, unfazed by the jabs. The prosecutor adjusted his tie, stepping up with a swagger, ready to seal the deal. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice smooth as silk, pointing at Musk. We're here because a billionaire believes rules don't apply to him. He spun toward the judge, locking eyes. The evidence? Overwhelming. Musk's company flaunted regulations, dodged legal guidelines, and acted like the law is just a suggestion. The judge nodded, a sly grin tugging at his lips, leaning in slightly. Mr. Musk, you get how serious this is, right? Musk tilted his head, listening quietly, not a peep out of him yet. The prosecutor flipped through his papers with a theatrical flourish. Your Honor, this isn't just sloppy business. This is flat-out defiance. Musk thrives on bending rules, but today he's hit a wall that won't budge. A low hum of agreement buzzed through the courtroom. The judge chuckled again, glancing at Musk. So, Mr. Musk, got a defense lined up, or should we start a legal crash course for you? More laughter erupted, the jury swapping looks like they'd already called the game. The prosecutor pounced. Your Honor, he seems to think this is a press stunt, tweeting his way out. But today, it's facts, not polls. The judge's grin widened. I'm curious, Mr. Musk, got a real argument? Or are we just waiting for your next meme? The room chuckled again, the tension building. Musk stayed still, his calm a stark contrast to the growing storm around him. The courtroom hummed with mocking chuckles, the judge's taunt still hanging in the air. Got a real argument? Or are we just waiting for your next meme? Elon Musk sat like a statue, his calm face a riddle no one could crack. The prosecutor seized the moment, his grin sharpening as he turned to the judge. Your Honor, we request the court seize the mountain of evidence against the defendant and moves fast, he said, his voice bold and sure. The judge nodded, tapping his gavel lightly, his eyes glinting with amusement. Mr. Musk, I suggest you speak up before I start wondering if you even belong here. For the first time, Musk moved. He took a slow breath, adjusted his jacket with a smooth tug, and rose to his feet. The room went quiet, every eye glued to him. His next words would either sink him or save him, and no one saw it coming. Musk exhaled, stepping forward with the same cool confidence he brought to rocket launches. He adjusted his jacket again, met the judge's gaze, and flashed a sly smirk. Your Honor, he started, his voice steady with a playful edge. I'd like to thank the prosecution for their colorful spin on reality. A wave of murmurs rolled through the gallery, heads tilting in surprise. The judge's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing just a bit. Musk paced slowly, hands loose at his sides. We keep hearing about rules, laws, how I've supposedly thumbed my nose at the system, he said, his tone light but pointed. But here's the catch, it assumes the system actually holds up under scrutiny. The prosecutor snorted, crossing his arms. Is that your defense, Mr. Musk? That the law's a joke? Musk swung around, locking eyes with him. No, my defense is you don't grasp the law you're swinging at me, he shot back. The room fell silent, the earlier laughter gone, replaced by a heavy, curious hush. Musk reached for a document on the table, flipping through it with casual ease. This whole case hinges on my company breaking regulations, he said, holding up the legal text. But let's zoom in on those rules. This law? It's ancient, crafted for an industry that's long gone. The wording's stuck in the past, the structure's a mess, and he smirked again, turning a page, it even trips over itself. The prosecutor shifted, his confidence wobbling. That's absurd, he barked. Musk raised a hand, cutting him off. Is it? If I followed every line here, I'd violate another federal rule. So, Your Honor, which law should I pick? The one that clashes with itself. The judge's grin vanished. He grabbed his glasses, scanning the text Musk pointed to, his lips pressing into a thin line. Musk didn't let up. Laws, like physics, should stand on solid ground, not contradict each other. This case? It's built on quicksand. The jury swapped wide-eyed looks, the energy in the room flipping like a switch. Musk turned to the prosecutor, his voice calm but firm. You figured I'd stumble over legal mumbo-jumbo, but I don't need fancy terms. I just need reason. The judge leaned forward, fingers drumming the bench, no trace of a smile left. Musk was no longer just defending, he was steering the whole show. The courtroom hung on every word as Elon Musk stood tall, his calm voice slicing through the silence. The judge, once smirking, now leaned forward, glasses perched on his nose, studying the document Musk had tossed into the ring. The prosecutor's confidence was crumbling, his earlier swagger replaced by a nervous shuffle. Musk tapped the thick legal text on the table, his movement slow and deliberate. Your Honor, he said, sliding a highlighted page toward the judge, let's zero in on section 42.3 of the law they're leaning on. The judge's eyebrows shot up as he scanned the lines, the room holding its breath. Musk didn't rush. This law, he continued, his tone steady, the one they say gives them the upper hand? It was scribbled down before the internet was a thing. A hushed wave of whispers swept through the gallery, reporters' pens pausing mid-scribble. The judge's expression shifted, intrigue flickering in his eyes. The prosecutor opened his mouth, but Musk rolled on. So, tell me, how do you police a cutting-edge industry with rules older than dial-up? It's like slapping horse and buggy laws on self-driving cars. It just doesn't add up. The prosecutor cleared his throat, forcing a laugh. Mr. Musk, that's a flimsy analogy. The core of the law still holds. Musk cut in, his voice smooth as steel. Does it? Check section 43.1. It says if a tech leap outpaces the rules, new standards have to be set before any legal smackdown can happen. The courtroom froze, the judge's eyes darting across the page. The prosecutor paled, his tie suddenly too tight. Musk folded his arms, a faint smirk playing on his lips. So, Your Honor, are we here to judge violations, or watch them stretch outdated rules to trap innovation? The energy flipped. The jury exchanged stunned glances, a woman in the front row clutching her notebook, her mouth open. A man in a suit whispered to his neighbor, did he just? The judge leaned back, fingers tapping the bench, no longer amused but deep in thought. Musk turned to the prosecutor, his gaze piercing. You thought I'd trip over legal jargon, but I don't need a law degree to outsmart this. I've got common sense on my side. The prosecutor shifted, his papers rustling as he scrambled for a comeback, but the air was thick with Musk's quiet victory. The judge adjusted his glasses, his face a mask of reevaluation. Musk waited, letting the silence stretch like a tightrope. Then he added, laws should be like blueprints, clear and consistent. If they clash, they're not justice, they're chaos. A teenage kid in the back scribbled notes, his eyes wide with awe. An older woman nodded slowly, tears glistening as she felt the weight of his words. The prosecutor's voice cracked as he tried to regain control. Your Honor, he's twisting technicalities. Musk tilted his head, unfazed. Funny how those technicalities are the backbone of your case, huh? The room stilled, the judge no longer the puppet master, but a student in Musk's unexpected classroom. The prosecutor's desperation was palpable, his earlier bravado a distant memory. Musk had shifted the fight from defense to dominance, and the courtroom was buzzing with the realization that this case might not end as predicted. The courtroom thrummed with a new energy, Elon Musk's words echoing like a challenge no one could ignore. The judge, once the ringmaster of this circus, now sat forward, his fingers tracing the highlighted text Musk had laid bare. The prosecutor's face tightened, his earlier confidence unraveling like a cheap suit. With a desperate grab, he snatched a stack of papers and stormed toward the bench. Your Honor, he boomed, his voice straining to sound authoritative, we've got fresh evidence. This document proves Musk knowingly sidestepped regulations, right here in black and white. The gallery gasped, pens flying across notebooks as reporters leaned in. Musk didn't blink. He folded his arms, watching the prosecutor dig his own hole with a cool, steady gaze. The judge raised an eyebrow, flipping through the pages with a skeptical frown. Mr. Musk, he said, his tone cautious, care to respond to this? Musk took a single step forward, his movements unhurried, like he was strolling through a Tesla factory. Of course, Your Honor, he replied, gesturing toward the document with a nod. That's interesting, considering this report dropped after the lawsuit was filed. A ripple of murmurs spread like wildfire, the crowd's eyes widening. The prosecutor froze, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Musk pressed on, his voice smooth and unshaken. If this was so crucial, why is it showing up now? It's not evidence. It's a last-ditch patch for a sinking argument. The judge's frown deepened, his gaze shifting to the prosecutor, who stammered, searching for words that wouldn't come. Musk's smirk returned, sharp and knowing. Desperation isn't a strategy, counselor. It's just panic dressed up. The room fell silent, the weight of Musk's logic pressing down. The judge rubbed his temple, his earlier amusement replaced by a grudging respect. The prosecutor's face flushed red, his hands trembling as he clutched his notes. A woman in a blue scarf in the front row whispered to her friend, "He's got them cornered," her voice thick with awe. A young guy with a laptop tapped furiously, his jaw dropped. The jury leaned in, their earlier certainty melting into fascination. Musk stood tall, hands resting on the table, as if he'd already mapped out the win. Then the prosecutor lunged again, his voice cracking. "Objection, Your Honor." He's spinning technicalities to dodge the truth. Musk tilted his head, his eyes gleaming with quiet triumph. "Funny how those technicalities are the foundation of your case, isn't it?" he said, his tone light but cutting. The judge's fingers drummed faster, his mind clearly churning. Musk seized the moment, pulling another marked page from the stack. "Let's talk precedent," he said, his voice rising with confidence. "In Smith versus Fantech Corp., ruled right here, a company can't be punished for innovating in a legal gray zone when laws don't catch up." Sound familiar? The judge blinked, recognition dawning. The prosecutor's shoulders slumped, his last card played and failing. Musk delivered the knockout. "So, Your Honor, are we here to enforce justice, or to slap down progress because it doesn't fit old molds?" The courtroom held its breath, the judge's face a storm of thought. The prosecutor's defeat was written in his clenched jaw, his papers slipping from his hands. Musk's calm was unshakable, and the room buzzed with the sense that the tide had turned for good. The courtroom teetered on a knife's edge. Elon Musk's last question, "Are we here to enforce justice, or to slap down progress?" lingering like a thunderclap. The judge sat deep in thought, his fingers tapping the bench, the earlier smirk wiped clean. The prosecutor slumped, his papers a crumpled mess, his confidence shattered. Every eye in the room locked on the bench, hearts pounding as the silence stretched. Musk stood tall, hands resting easy on the table, his calm a stark beacon in the storm he'd stirred. The gallery buzzed softly, a mix of awe and anticipation rippling through the crowd. The judge exhaled, rubbing his temple with a weary hand. He'd walked in expecting an easy takedown of a brash billionaire, but Musk had flipped the script. "Mr. Musk," he began, his voice carrying a blend of surprise and admiration, "I'll admit, I underestimated you." A few gasps broke the quiet, the prosecutor stiffening as if struck. The judge continued, his tone firm. "This court came in thinking your actions were reckless, maybe even illegal. But after hearing your points, that's not what I see." The room held its breath, the tension thick enough to cut. "You've not only torn apart the charges," the judge said, glancing at the prosecutor with a sharp look, "you've exposed cracks in how this case was thrown together." The evidence from the prosecution? Inconsistent at best, misleading at worst. The prosecutor's face drained of color, his mouth opening to protest, but no sound came. Musk remained silent, letting the moment settle. The judge took a final, sweeping look at the room before speaking again. "The court finds no basis to move forward with this case. Mr. Musk, you're free to go." The gallery erupted, cheers clashed with stunned whispers, cameras flashing like a fireworks show. A woman in a green jacket leapt up, clapping wildly, tears streaming down her face. A teenager with headphones pumped his fist, grinning ear to ear. The prosecutor stared at the floor, defeated, his stack of papers slipping to the ground. Musk smirked faintly, slipping on his sunglasses with a smooth motion. Outside, reporters swarmed like bees, microphones thrust forward. "Mr. Musk, how does it feel to win?" one shouted. Musk adjusted his shades, a small grin tugging at his lips. "Feels like logic did the heavy lifting," he said, his words sparking a frenzy of clicks and flashes. The impact rippled far beyond that day. Headlines blazed, "Elon Musk, legal mastermind," and legal experts debated how he'd expose system flaws. Corporate lawyers reevaluated their strategies, wondering if they'd face the same unraveling. The judge, in a later interview, nodded thoughtfully. "He didn't just defend himself, he made us rethink the game," he admitted. For Musk, though, it was just another chapter. He moved on, tackling new challenges, While the courtroom emptied, its echoes lingering like a wake-up call. The real question lingered too. How many cases had crumbled under outdated laws, silencing voices without the power to fight? Musk had proven one mind could shake the foundation. The judge, once dismissive, now saw wisdom beyond degrees. Laws, like tech, needed to evolve, and Musk had lit the fuse. Hey, you, what's your take? Should laws adapt like technology, or stick to tradition? Drop your thoughts below, hit like if this blew your mind, and share it with someone who loves a good underdog story. Let's keep this conversation rolling.